Hello guys, Lit here. So in this video I want to showcase another setup that combining the Doryani Prototype setup that I showcased in my previous video with Playstyle. So Playstyle is the new assassination node from Reliquarian. It's also a unique scepter and it's going to give you Phantasmal Might. And Phantasmal Might going to give you a bunch of flat damage based on how many summon Phantasm you have. And we can scale the number of the Phantasm you have by a really high amount. So the maximum you can get is 62 is by using Soul Rest, Dark Monarch, and Congregations. And 62 Phantasms give you a shitload of flat physical damage. And we can convert the physical damage to lightning damage so it will work with Doryani Prototype. So before we continue on the video, I want to show a context. What you see on the screen is like around 20, probably 30% of the total DPS. And the reason for that one, because I cannot use Blacken with Soul Rest, because Soul Rest is a two-handed staff. So we basically do not have the bonus of the flat damage that we get from the Phantasmal Might. So let me show it on the POP, just to give a context. In the custom modifier here, I have the Black Cane, adding flat physical damage to spell. If I remove this, this is basically what the damage looks like on the screen, and we have 13.8 million, which is not super bad, but it's also not super great. This 13.8 million, when I put back the modifier of the Black Cane, now we have 82 million. So this is how strong the node of the Black Cane if you utilize it to the fullest potential. So what you see on the screen, the damage is like the fraction of the actual damage. It's just I cannot really show you because it's not really possible to test it now because we don't have the ascendancy yet. So there is a few problems that you need to solve for this setup. The first one is Soul Rest only gives you summon Phantasm when you consume corpses. And you can do that by using Desecrate to get the corpses, and you can use something like Dead on the Dead, Offering, or like Volatile Dead. But that will require a lot of button and a lot of juggling, and it's not very nice to play with. And the easiest way I can find to generate corpses is by using Devourer support. You can use the normal versions, both of them basically work the same way, it's just the greater Devourer support give you a chance to get a soul. In Path of Exile, we give you a bunch of attack speed, cast speed, and for mapping scenario, Devourer support works perfect because you have a lot of monster. The more density you have, the more corpses you're going to have, the more Phantasm you're going to have. And as you can see on the showcase, I constantly have all my Phantasms, which is great. But on a single target, it's a bit of a problem because the way I generate corpses for the single target is by using Arcanist Brain, linking Desecrate DTO chain reactions with Spell Cascade. So it's a bit slow to generate the Phantasm on the single target. On map bosses, it doesn't really matter. You're going to kill them before anything happens. But for bosses, this is not an ideal situation. So the setup that I showcased today is a mapping setup. I do not recommend bring this to the boss because that will be too much of a hassle because you have to keep putting down the Arcanist Brand and you have to maintain the Phantasm, which is not very tanky. They die very easily, and if you're doing something like bosses, they have a lot of mechanic that will kill them instantly. You can use something like Blast Reboot and all that stuff, but that is an additional setup. So the setup is strictly for mapping, and for mapping purposes, Devourer support basically cover all your bases. And for the map bosses itself, you can just use Arcanist Brand. You only put it once, and the map boss will die, right? Because we have that many damage. And there is another setup that I made where we don't rely on Devourer or we don't rely on Arcanist Brand, so we can constantly generate corpses and we can constantly consume corpses. But that setup requires a lot more investment to works, so I don't think I will showcase it before the league start. I will probably showcase it when I actually got there. So with that said, let's just go with the setup. So the first one is of course the Doryani Prototype. This is what going to give the enemy minus lightning resistance. Using Doryani Prototype combined with the Helical Ring that have minor lightning resistance, it will give you minus maximum resistance. And shout out to Michael who left a comment on my previous video. There is a note on the patch note where they're going to reduce the effect of the Reflecting Mist. Now I don't know how big the nerf they want to do with that, but there is other item that you can use to reduce your lightning resistance. So for examples, we have Immortal Flesh here. It's going to reduce I think 25 elemental resistance, and there is also something like Thread of Hope is going to reduce another 20%, and there is also Choir of Storms that reduce your lightning resistance by 30%, and we also can reflect Amulet. So Amulet also can have a lot of minus lightning resistance, so at least we have that as an option. And once again, shout out to Michael because he gave us another options for damage conversions, and he suggests that we can use Divine Flesh. So Divine Flesh is a notable that you can get from Glorious Vanity. Now you can only choose one. Either you go Glorious Vanity or you go Little Pride. So what Divine Flash did is basically going to convert 50% of your elemental damage to chaos damage. And that's been 50% of that cold and lightning damage going to become chaos damage instead. And it's also give us 5% maximum chaos resistance. And we can also get bunch of maximum resistance node like this, which make us having 83 right now. So the downside of using Glorious Vanity is, number one, now you have two resistance that you have to care about. The first one is fire, and the second one is chaos, because your damage is basically converted into that two type. And having to cover two resistance will require more resources than you have to only care about one resistance. So I don't know how hard it is to get the maximum chaos resistance. Assuming that you can easily get the level 90, this is more or less the same with Little Pride. So this is another option you can go for. For me personally, I still prefer to go for Little Pride, and the reason for that one, because Little Pride gives strength. So for example, like this node, like every node that you take inside the Little Pride will give you strength, and strength will give you life. So it gives you a little bit more survivability. And Little Pride also have another like this, which give me life, which is something that I really need on this setup. And it also have something like double damage to give you more damage. It also allow you to use Transcendent Flash. So Transcendent Flash basically going to give you a critical strength multiplier per 10 strength on unallocated passive in radius. And because Little Pride adding bunch of strength, all of this basically give us quite a lot of crit multi. This one give 86. This one give 92 crit multi. So this is a lot of DPS, and this is the reason why I prefer to go for Little Pride. But Little Pride does have a downside because of the Temper of War. The wording where you're going to have 50% less lightning resistance. You are fighting against this one to get your lightning resistance to minus 200s. So that is the pro and con for both of them. Once again, we don't know how big of a nerf on the reflecting mist. So in a situation like this, having more option is always better. So that is the Doryani Prototype setup. Now for the Black Cane setup, this is a Black Cane. This is a unique scepter. It summons Phantasm, grant you Phantasm Might, and this is the buff that I'm talking earlier. In the next league, we can take this as Ascendancy node. So this is what enable this setup in the first place. So you have to be the Reliquarian. And another piece of the setup is Soul Rest. This is the one that's going to generate you a lot of Phantasmal. And Dark Monarch that have a maximum number of summon Phantasm is double. And we also have Congregation support. And we also support the Summon Phantasm skill on the Soul Rest with the Summon Phantasm support. In the showcase, you probably see something like 57 or 58. And that is because my Congregation support is level 3. And my Summon Phantasm support is level 20. So you need this one to be level 21. And you need this to be level 4 to get the remaining of the Phantasmal Spirit. And that is how you can get a lot of Phantasmal. And on the passive tree itself, it looked like this. And on the bottom here, this is a tag with Little Pride and Transcendence Flash that I explained earlier. This is a very common tag for Scion. Because we have an easy access to the middle jewel socket. The trade-off hope with Massive Ring with a bad elemental resistance is actually pretty cheap, because this one I think is very, very common drop. And we actually want the one that have a minus 20 elemental resistance. You just have to make sure that you have enough fire resistance. Trade-off up here basically allow us to take this node, and also some life that we really, really need, because the downside of this setup is it doesn't have a lot of defense. This is not the glass cannon build, but it's certainly not very tanky. For me personally, for mapping characters, this is more than tanky enough. You can take quite a lot of hit, and you can always use Headhunter, which basically solve all your defense problems. And then we have two clusters over here. The cluster is the same. Overshock going to give you lightning damage and 40% effect of lightning ailment. And this is also the reason why the arc can hit and get 65 shock effect, which basically make the enemy take 65% more damage. And Thunderstruck will give you a lightning damage and also some critical strikes. We will going to need that. And Doryani Lessons, this is how you leech life. And you need at least one of this. In my other cluster, I'm basically using the same thing. And then we're going to use Eldritch Battery because the mana cost is pretty crazy. And the only way I can sustain that is by using Eldritch Battery. And then using this node over here that make you able to leech Energy Shield with spell. And we also have the 5% leech instance. And this is basically help us generate enough Energy Shield to cast all the arc. And for the Watcher Eye, I'm going for Zealotry cast speed. I'm not sure if this is the best way to go. But we have Zealotry, Rot, and Enlighten. So if you need critical, there is another mod that basically gives you increased critical strike chance while you have Rot. That's also something you can go for. But in this setup, because we are using a Greater Spell Echo, having a lot of cast speed actually make things a lot smoother. So I like to have more cast speed. But also remember that in the next league, lightning spell is getting reduced cast time and also more mana cost. And increasing your cast speed, it does make it smoother, but it also increase your cost. And so this is something that we have to adjust on the next league. And the last one is a line of meaning here, and this is basically how I get enough chaos resistance. So right now my chaos resistance is capped, and if I'm not using this one, I only have 14 chaos resistance. I think that's it for this video. I just want to showcase this setup. And because of playing this, I kind of want to make a caster league start for Sion. Which is I've been trying to, it's just I cannot find a caster that are smooth and, you know, like effortless to play. Compared to something like Cyclone is not super fast, but it's just very comfy. The damage is also not that bad. You can reach quite a high damage with Cyclone, and the investment is not exactly that high either. Cyclone is just a very, very comfortable setup, and it's already proven. I already do it last league. I know that it works. But after doing this character, I really, really want to try caster. So we still have few days until league start. I will try my best to make a caster league start. I probably will not recommend that setup because I will work on informations that we got from patch note, but I cannot really confirm it because the thing is not here yet. For example, like Black Cane, I cannot really test it because I cannot use Sores and Black Cane at the same time. So there's a lot of unknown factor, and if you're a new player, I don't think that's a good league start for you. If you're an experienced player, you probably will be fine. You can make things work probably, but because the nature of it is just not 100% confirmed, it's really hard to recommend that kind of setup. So that's probably what I will try. If I have some setup for caster, I will make a video about it. And that's probably more for the experienced player. So yeah, I think that's it from me. And as usual, if you guys have any questions, just leave in the comment below. And thank you everyone for watching. I really, really appreciate it. And I will see you on the next one.